Hello and welcome to the MMA Mic Drop Podcast. This is episode number 3. My name is Jade Bunky. I am joined by the one and only Milo McGregor. He is one of the nation's top up-and-coming amateur surfers. And despite his young age, has demonstrated a certain degree of MMA sagacity in that he went undefeated with his picks from our last podcast. So I am impressed and honestly quite shocked. And I must say, your youthful appearance is making me look quite old on this podcast as well.
Well, that's because you are old.
Oh, so, there you go. Milo coming strong out the gate. All right. Well, hey, we actually had a couple interesting fights to watch last Saturday. This wasn't the strongest fight card, but I think it had some pretty big implications. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down the top 5 fights and we're going to make recommendations for who should each person fight next, or at least each winner who that individual should fight next. So in the main event, we had Paul Craig versus Brendan Allen. We both called it correctly. I believe I called second round submission. It was a third round submission. I believe you called it by finish in the second round as well. What was fascinating about this is Brendan Allen was better everywhere. We knew he'd be better on the feet. There's no surprise there. Paul Craig is not a really good stand-up fighter. His whole game is get you on the ground, get on his back, and try to sub you. You know, he's really reminiscent of one of those old school Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioners who was, primarily a specialist and, wanted to bring you into the guard. And from that time forward, you would be in trouble. But that's no longer the case. MMA is so much more diverse. But with that said, Paul Craig has beat the best of the best in the light heavyweight division before he moved down to middleweight. I mean, he beat Jamal Hill, the former champ. He beat Ankalaev by a last-minute submission. He was losing the entire fight. So this is what Paul Craig does. He's incredibly dangerous. And what was interesting about this particular fight was that Brendan Allen was not afraid to go to the ground. And not only was he unafraid, he dominated him on the ground. What was fascinating is that he had Paul Craig in all sorts of trouble on the ground. And you see Paul Craig is skilled enough where he actually was about to get, choked out. And he threw up a Hail Mary, which was a calf slicer. And Brendan Allen had to do some work to get out of that. So that was absolutely interesting. But nonetheless, it really demonstrated a degree of dominance over a former light heavyweight top-ranked fighter who came down to middleweight, who beat a top 10 guy in Muniz and just completely dominated him. What were your thoughts on the fight?
I think it was it was a really good fight. It kind of went longer than I expected, though. Honestly, I didn't think it was going to go to decision.
Well,
I didn't think it was going to go to the third round. I didn't think it was going to go to the third round.
And that's what I think we both picked second round. And there was a good possibility that Brendan Allen finished him in the first round as well, because I just felt he was so much better everywhere. And I don't know if you saw the face-off or if you heard the audio for the face-off. Yeah, Brendan Allen, Paul Craig comes out with all this intensity, and Brendan Allen said, I hope you bring this intensity to the fight and you don't pull guard, because that's what Paul Craig does. He comes in really hot and heavy, and then he backs up and tries to get you into his guard, and it's kind of funny. So, but Brendan Allen dominated him, and the question is, what's next? And I think I have the perfect matchup for him. I'm going to make the argument that he should fight Khamzat Chimaev next. And here's why. Chimaev has that big name, right? Brendan Allen is hot. He's, I think, won 6 in a row. He's won 11-2, or he's won 11-2 now in the UFC. He's on this strong rise in a weaker middleweight division. And I think there's this opportunity to create a win-win scenario for the UFC brand. And here's how. Chimaev is undefeated. He's that hot prospect that everybody's been talking about for the last couple of years, but he's unproven at middleweight, which is indicative of his placement in the ranking, which is number 8, but also what other UFC fighters are saying. Brendan Allen has called him out on that. Dricus du Plessis has called him out on that. So And then he also struggled against Kamaru Usman in the second and third rounds after he dominated the first round. So the question is, how good is he really at middleweight? And I think there's an opportunity if you match these two fighters up where they can both elevate each other's brands. And let me elaborate on that. My initial thought after this fight was, let's match up Brendan Allen with Marvin Vettori. But what if Vettori wins? What happens then? Well, he's no closer to a title fight. That doesn't help the UFC market another fighter more effectively. What it does is it eliminates the possibility of marketing Brendan Allen in a certain way in the coming months or in the coming year. What I would do is match him up with Khamzat Chimaev, because if Chimaev wins, wow, this guy's legit at the middleweight division. Most of us already think he is legit at the middleweight division, but this would verify it in terms of getting a finish against a win against a top-ranked middleweight fighter like Brendan Allen, who's really one of the up-and-coming guys in the division. Conversely, if Brendan Allen wins, wow, he beat the boogeyman of the entire UFC. It used to be the welterweight division. Khamzat Chimaev is the guy no one wanted to fight. I think it's the ultimate win-win, and they're 10 and 8 in the rankings respectively. I think it would be a fascinating matchup, because would Khamzat Chimaev dominate Brendan Allen on the ground? What happens if he does, but he makes it out of the first round? Is Brendan Allen going to gas like Kamaru Usman, who didn't have a training camp, who was up a weight class? I think that is the best fight to make. What are your thoughts?
You're kind of like convincing me right now, but I think that Robert Whittaker would be like a great fight, because I think he should fight Robert Whittaker and then go fight Khamzat. So like I feel like it shows him, like, I don't know.
Well, if he beats Whittaker, maybe I think if he beats Whittaker, he could even bypass Khamzat, right?
Yeah, but
I think he can. I think that gives that's a title eliminator, right? I think Robert Whittaker's a great fight to make. I would be very curious. I would love to watch that fight, and it would be a good fight to make. I still would go with Khamzat, because say if I think it does more. If you think of the possible scenarios, regardless if Whittaker wins, or if Allen wins, or if Khamzat wins, or Brendan Allen wins, I think the UFC has more marketing opportunities with an Allen and Khamzat Chimaev fight. But with that said, now I'm really intrigued with the Robert Whittaker, potential Robert Whittaker fight. But I think what's clear is Brendan Allen has proven himself to be a major player at 185. Let's see how good he is. I'm excited to watch him fight next. And he wants to fight in April. That's going to line up with UFC 300. What about him and Chimaev on that fight card would be amazing. Robert Whittaker and Brendan Allen would be incredible too. But I'm going to go with Khamzat Chimaev. I think that would be a remarkable fight that puts the UFC in a win-win situation. Next up, we have Morales versus Jake Matthews. Now, Morales impressed me a little more than he has in his previous fight. He demonstrated a really quick jab, demonstrated incredible athleticism. He was actually pretty fun to watch. He thoroughly outclassed Jake Matthews. But one of my problems with Morales, and maybe this shouldn't be one of my problems, he's winning these fights, he's winning them easily. But when there's hype around a prospect, I want to see domination against a lesser fighter. Would Shavkat have struggled against Matthews? And maybe not struggled, but Shavkat would have finished him. Now, that's what a prospect does. Chimaev would have finished him. And so I think he's good. I think he definitely has top 10 upside. And before this fight, I wasn't thinking he did have that type of upside. But I'd like to see him fight somebody right outside the top 15 rankings. I'd like to see him fight Randy Brown. Let's see if he's in for a rude awakening as he moves up the ranks. Maybe not. I don't know. I think that is an interesting fight. I think Morales has showed incredible skill. And the question with him now, being an undefeated fighter, given the hype, is how good is he? He's proven he's a good fighter, right? Is he a top 15 fighter? I think so. Is he a top 10? Maybe. Is he a top 5? I don't think so, but let's give him a stiff challenge with Randy Brown. What are your thoughts? Who would you like to see him matched up against next?
I think I'm going to agree with you on that. I think it would be a good fight, but I think top 15, somebody in the top 15 actually, or out of it, so right around there.
Okay, so you'd go a little higher than Randy Brown, and do you have a name off the top of your head, or you want to think about that a little more?
Yeah,
not right now.
Think about that.
All right, so your wisdom, which wisdom for a 16-year-old might be a loaded word, but your insights, your perspective has seen tends to always be right in picking fights. So I think that's where you're going to stick with your expertise, right?
Yep, for sure.
Just pick the fights. Don't care how you come up with them, but get them right, which is pretty. I'm still amazed by that. So are you amazed by that? Because I'm amazed by it.
No, I just knew.
Okay.
I just know.
No. Okay. An emphatic no. Awesome. Okay. So because that's following a good, you did well in the first one, 8-3. 5-0 in this one. Very impressive. Now, moving on, this was another fight about which I was really interested. This was the Payton Talbott fight. He looked incredible. What I liked about him, this guy's only 24 years old, and he demonstrated really high fight IQ. He wouldn't get baited into a ground position because he knew he was the better striker unless he knew he could secure a completely dominant position. And dominate was what he did after a really tough first round. He really struggled in the first round. He was getting smothered, but he was able to make adjustments. And I've seen this in his other fights. He's able to make adjustments after the first round. And the extent to which he makes those adjustments are incredibly impressive. I think he's a remarkable athlete. I think he's definitely has top 15 upside potential. I mean, we don't know. I mean, we need to see him fight some more, some more guys who are not ranked yet. And that's exactly what I would do. I don't have a particular name for him right now because I think you just move him along slowly. You get individuals who are in that same range in terms of the low end of the rankings that aren't published. And you just move him up. You give him an opportunity to develop his skills slowly, because I think with some more cage time, this guy has all the tools. He seems to be a smart fighter. He seems to be an athletic fighter. He's an interesting personality, kind of a likable personality as well. I'm incredibly curious to see how far he goes. And I would say let's give him an opportunity to slowly work his way up to a top 15 person and develop, maybe not develop, but refine some of his already pretty incredible MMA skills. What are your thoughts?
I think give him somebody in the top 10.
Top 10? What?
Yeah.
Wow. Just not messing around, going the complete opposite path. Why do you want to see him in the top 10 already?
Because I feel like I would want to see him, there's a fighter like Dominic Cruz. I want to see him against Dominic Cruz. I feel like that'd be a good fight.
So you would see, okay, so yeah, I would say that's a little too soon, but wow. Milo McGregor going straight for the top 10. He thinks Payton Talbott can own it right now. Wow, that's very aggressive. Yep. All right. Now, after that, we had the Pinheiro versus Amanda Ribas fight. I got this one incorrect. Milo got it correct. He picked Amanda Ribas, and he picked her by decision, so called everything correctly. That was a good fight. She was losing in the first round, and I was feeling really good about my pick until the second round. Amanda Ribas turned up the volume, made some adjustments, and then in that third round, that kick to the face was brutal, and you saw Pinheiro just shut down. And that was pretty much the end of that. Ribas looked good, but I still would want to see her with somebody who's similar, ranked in kind of the same area, right? I would like to see her fight Mackenzie Dern next. Mackenzie Dern, she's coming off a loss, but she is one spot ahead of her. That's the fight I would like to see next. What would you prefer?
Yeah, I think I would go with Mackenzie Dern. She didn't look that good in the last one, but I don't know. She's kind of up there in the rankings.
Yeah, she's up there in the rankings. And you got to support an almost local. She's near local. She's in nearby Huntington Beach, so you kind of got to support the local athletes. So
yeah.
So I'd love to see her, get back on track as well. Oh, and we almost forgot to talk about Chase Hooper and Jordan Leavitt. Again, this is another one where Milo called correctly. I called incorrectly. I went 4-2 on the fights. He went 5-0 because what we're going to do for most of the fight night cards, we're just going to make predictions for the top 5 fights. The pay-per-views will give predictions for the entire fight card. And also, or I should say, we will make an exception for the next fight card, which we will preview next week, which you want to watch. We will give predictions for every fight because that's going to be an incredible fight card, top to bottom, for a free fight card. With that said, Chase Hooper and Jordan Leavitt, that was an interesting fight because there was a lot of interesting scrambles. And what happens sometimes when you get 2 grapplers, you might have a stand-up fight. Same thing if you have 2 dynamic strikers, sometimes you might have a grappling fight. And you rarely get exactly what you want in MMA. This was really fascinating, a lot of high-level grappling, and Chase Hooper locked in the submission and was looking pretty good. And he's young. He's like Talbott. I don't think he has the upside of Talbott. He doesn't have the athleticism. But he is making some decent strides. But he's nowhere near, making an impact yet. I would gradually move him up, again, similar to what I'm doing to Talbott, although not as slowly, right? Talbott is, new to the UFC. Even though they are the same age, Chase Hooper has been in the UFC for a while, and he is making improvements, but not enough to really get me excited about, but enough to watch him if he's going to engage in another grappling match. If you match him up against another grappler, that's interesting. Perhaps that's the path you take. You continue to match him up with grapplers until his striking pans out a little bit better, and then who knows, it may never pan out, but because it is fun to watch him grapple. What are your thoughts?
I think he has to work on his striking a little bit, but that fight, there was a lot of I thought somebody was gonna get knocked out when they were scrambling, and then they just, I don't know, he got choked out. But yeah,
exactly. You never know what's going to happen in those scrambles because sometimes it creates an opportunity, where somebody allows oneself to be exposed, and it creates the setup for a kick or a punch that you never saw coming. So it is, the scrambles are always fun, and it is it is funny, it is always fun to watch the lower weight classes fight because you tend to get more of those scrambles, or you definitely get more of those scrambles, as we definitely will not talk about the heavyweight fight that was on this card, which was not as interesting. Okay, so there we have it. We have our 5 picks. Now we're going to do this, or we have our what matches to make next. Now we're going to move to the new segment. It's called Kicking It with Milo. So last time we talked about how Milo was surfing 12-foot pipeline, wearing a helmet, saw a kid whose face was all bloodied up, but still inspired him after it scared him. Now I want to change the subject a little bit. When was the last time your dad got mad at you?
Today, actually, in the morning.
What did he get mad at you for? Your grades, or they're failing? Huh?
Yeah. No, they're good. They're good.
Oh, they're good. He got mad at you? Why?
Yeah. Because I missed some assignments.
But the grades were good?
Yeah.
So why is he mad at you if the grades are good, even though you missed assignments?
Because he's just like that.
So he's trying to teach responsibility?
Yep.
And do you have a problem with responsibility?
I do. That's why I missed those assignments.
So you're all about the results, right? Kind of like the picks, right? Because you get the picks right. You don't care how you come up with them. It's just if they're right. Your grades are good. You don't care the means by which you get good grades as long as you do well.
Yep, for sure.
How many days a week does your dad get mad at you?
Every day.
Every Are they deserved?
No. Yeah, they are.
They're not. Now, does your mom get mad at you every day?
No.
Okay, because when she gets mad at you, that's usually deserved because we know your mom is flawless. She doesn't make mistakes, but your dad is about as flawed as a human could get, right? Would you agree with that statement?
No.
No.
So
Why not?
Sometimes he can be.
All right. Well, all right. Before we conclude, for anyone watching, please click the subscribe button. Please click the like button. Even if you don't like this show, click the like button anyways. I think that's pretty awesome. Yeah, click the like button as Milo McShredder is demonstrating. And we'll drop another one next Wednesday with a big preview for the upcoming fight card. In the meantime, Milo, do you have a last word for anybody?
Drop the mic.
Boom. We're out.